Hello, everybody. It's Friday night and it is Weekender time once more. And on this week's show, I'm joined by Justin, Shane, Ben to take you through a week's worth of hobby news that's caught our eye over the last 7 days. On top of that, we also have a prize from store.ontabletop.com, the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry Nightmare Quest. If you want to be in with a chance to win, you need to pop a comment below, be a subscriber to the channel, and if you can do the sherry stuff as well, that would be terrific. Otherwise, sit back, relax, crack open a beer. Your weekend starts here. Hello, everybody. Enjoying your Friday night? I am, because I've got ambush from Kings of War to build.
All right. I thought you were going to go, I am, because I have a big bottle of Lefroy.
No. I'm trying to cut down. I'm slimming.
Got to drop that alcohol weight.
Yep. Really got to drop the alcohol weight. I get my beach body ready.
Oh, man.
Like I've ever been on a beach.
Jerry, you need to increase the intake. You need the con bod ready.
I was going to say summer event ready. Is the way
I've got factor 50 on me and I'm inside a room and I'm still burning.
Sounds about right for the Irish.
Yeah.
But we have a whole host of stuff to get stuck into this week.
Oh boy.
A big Galvy bucket load of stuff before we pack up all the studio and then sod off to UKG in 2 weeks.
Oh, I've already started.
God.
I'm impressed. There's still stuff behind you on the walls there.
I'm stripping tech, not stuff.
Oh,
I'm very selective.
Selective stripping. Best kind of
No! Nobody needs that.
What a good way to start the episode. Yeah.
So we're going to kick things off, as always, with the most important part of the show.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it is, of course, the Indie of the Week.
Oh, yeah.
And this week I've gone full on indie. It's not a company. It is just an independent group of like-minded individuals. A collective, if you will. I'll preface this with, whenever you get multiple wargamers together trying to discuss what they're going to do on any given occasion, it's like herding cats. and in many respects, this indie is the genesis of that.
Yeah.
Because many moons ago, the ETC, which was the European team competition or championship, they got together. The old world had just been nuked, so the choices were continue with the old world at 8th edition, ad infinitum. That's just how it's going to be. We'll move to something like Kings of War, that was just in 2nd edition, and going great guns. And so they went 9th age.
Yeah,
We'll
none
start
of
our
this.
own.
None of this.
We're going to start our own world with blackjack and hookers.
Forget the blackjack.
And over the past few years now, I say few years, must be like 2016 or 2017.
It's been going for a while.
Been a while, yeah.
Went away.
Yeah.
They've gone through alpha iterations and beta iterations, and they're now on a 2nd edition, and they've added a whole slew of things.
I know we did a good dose of videos on this a while back. Long while back.
I think we sat down with the designers, didn't we? Or some of the team
Yeah.
members behind it. Yeah.
Let's go for a look back in the archives.
Long time ago. If you come to the 9th age and you know nothing about the 9th age, long story short, it is a rank and file fantasy war game. If you can play it in something like Warhammer or Kings of War or Boards of the Things, whatever, you'll find something similar that will work in here. A couple of interesting things that they've done subsequently, though, you can see here on the little landing page, is they have what they call the Essence of War. And this is a sort of a introductory level game, similar to Kings of War Ambush, where you are limited to a character, singular, and then 3 units, and it's fixed. So if you want to play orcs, then you have these specific 3. Now there is like a list building part into it, where you can play around with it, and some of the the rules are slightly different from the full 9th Age fantasy battle game, but it gives you a really good idea of how the game actually plays out.
Mm-hmm.
You can see here, you can download things like the book itself. The flux cards are like their magic deck.
My favorite thing on this is the papercraft patrols. So you don't even have to buy miniatures to give it a go.
Yeah, exactly. You can just dive right into it. Where are we?
There's a download button in the top right if that's what you're looking for.
I'm desperately looking for it, but I can't see anything.
Right there, Jerry. It was right there.
Jerry.
Right there.
It's blue.
Jerry, come on.
Oh, there's there.
Yay.
There we go.
Abadi, abadi.
It's not my fault. Everything's so small and far away for you kids. So, Essence of War, I'm going to do it this way. I will start off by saying that whenever you get into any of these, this one's relatively small as far as production team and artists go, but the full 9th Age is absolutely jam-packed because it is a voluntary project that, you know, everything is given freely by people. Time, effort, and inclination is all there. So if you want to play through, this gives you, as you can see, it's still a 98-page, I think, rulebook, which is
immense.
And this is the small version, so it still goes through your there's their world for the 9th Age itself. It goes through who the various factions are. So if you don't know who you want to be playing, whether it's the Usklanders or the Beast Herds or whatever it happens to be, you can find a brief sort of blurb about them in here, and then it gets into the full-on rules themselves.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way of doing it. That is the stat line. The stat line is diverged massively from. I didn't. I say this. Warhammer.
It's not the classic
9.
Yeah, not the classic weapon skill, ballistic skill that we're not normally used to seeing. Really, so.
They parted ways with the initial iterations of trying to, you know, come up with their own Warhammer-esque.
Oh, is the strength toughness chart still in here, or is it gone?
No, it's gone because that would be copyrightable. But because of that, they've come up with some interesting things. So you would have in Warhammer, you have a weapon skill, and you would compare it to your opponent's weapon skill, whereas now you have a defensive and offensive skill, which means that a miniature is no longer as good at attacking as it is at defending. It means you can have more variables, more iterations in there. You can have something that's very aggressive and very poor defensively, or vice versa. So
so your berserkers feel berserky.
Yeah, so changes over time without it just being solely down to how tough or how much armor they have and go, well, they've got 5 attacks and no armor, that's a berserker. Well, now you can go, their defensive skill is terrible. But they're very aggressive, so that becomes their advance in March. You're not just doubling your advance to get your March rate. Most times you are, but some things may have identical, so they can't march essentially, or they may have a slightly varied one.
Right. See, so again, that works for me really well narratively, because if you're a guy rocking around in tons of armor, no, you don't run today, son. You're too heavy. You don't run.
Yeah, unless you're a dwarf. So
natural sprinters.
The strength against resilience is just that's the table now as opposed to the old reference table. So you just -1 from the other to see what you need to hit and so on and so forth.
Looks more in line with the way that they changed Warhammer and 40k, Age of Sigmar and stuff.
Could be. Stop looking at their rule books when they killed the old world. We all go our own directions.
Just like all these people.
So anyway, if you
looks really simple.
Interested in getting into it, this is a good way of doing it because you just need a small amount of figures, units, or big wooden bases. The other thing is there's no reforming in this. There is in the main game, so you can drop from 2 ranks to 4 or whatever you want. This, it's just footprint, kind of like although you've got figure removal.
Yeah,
but it's very fixed to make learning the game mechanics very easy,
a little easier.
Which is
I saw that they covered basically every one of the armies that we saw in the lore.
We can see that
all the lists, the breakdown of lists and everything as well in there, which is kind of cool.
Oh, sorry, Jerry.
No, you were about to say something. I was just going to.
Well, it's a question I have. So let's say we've got 4 people here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which of the fantasy factions would each of us consider if we were thinking of diving into this?
Anything except Dry Undead. They are the worst. Right there, that one on the left.
Personally, I think I'd be going for Dry Undead, actually.
Just the worst. Absolute worst person.
I mean, for me, I would go for the Sippy Undead, so vampirish.
Oh, vampires. That's cool.
Well, it's the closest I ever came to playing in the old world. My mates over in England had actually made me a vampire accounts list. What was it called? The Von Karstein Family Mafia?
Von Karstein.
Wow.
One zombie.
I think I'd take the opportunity to make an entirely new dwarven army. So I'd get a bunch of I get the avatars of war dwarves, and I'd use those to make the basis of my force. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go for rats.
Rats? You would go down Skeveny?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love my Skaven boys.
I remember seeing people with a screaming bell removing half their army because they've screwed up the roll.
Omelette and eggs.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so is this the layout? Is this basically what you need to collect in order to play, say, the Kingdoms of Equitaine? You just get those things.
You would get a single character, in this case a damsel, 10 archers, 8 sergeants, and 2 Pegasus knights.
And that's it. Yeah.
And that's it.
Oh, and
there
then some
is
special rules on the other side,
where you can list build within this version of the game further on. But otherwise, it's very set, very standardized, and probably a great way of introducing people with a
really
relatively
like
low model count, but a few different armies in there. So we shall leave the essence of war behind and plow on then into 9th Age proper.
So we've moved from the eau de toilette to the perfume. Is what you're saying.
So you may say that. I wouldn't say that, but you may say that. So we have here the big download page. So you can see there is some of the older versions are still kicking around as well. You've got your rulebook. You have a older style lists here. You've got slimline versions with a lot of the nonsense in it for people who want to print out and bring their book with them.
Right, yeah.
So all of the backgroundy bits.
Yeah. Which is, it's all good. And you can see there a whole host of things. Orc and Goblins got their new version last week. Which
nice.
Should be
so they're still iterating on things, which is
cool. Yeah.
So,
they're constantly in and updating and improving and rebalancing, because as soon as they rebalance Orcs and Goblins and bring it up to speed, then it'll turn out that some other faction is now ridiculous against Orcs and Goblins because of something.
Well, this is always the truth of every war game. You can playtest as much as you want until you release it, and then that's when the real playtest begins, because you can guarantee someone out there is going to be... this is a term we haven't used in a long time, but they're going to go cheese hunting.
It's the way of it. You can see here the army books themselves, without all the additional fluff and background and stuff, they're only 24-page lists. Army organization's very simple. It's very close to the old school.
It is,
Warhammer, where you must take 25% core choices, no limit to specials, and 40% characters. That's interesting, because it means you can go completely ham on giants. And I'm not saying I used to do that with old Warhammer in Goblins, but they were 205 points per giant, and they were core choices for Goblins back in the day. Well, Orcs and Goblins, I suppose, technically, because they were the same.
It looks from the points cost that we've seen here for some of the heroes and things, that it works to around the same kind of size of armies that you'd expect from kind of Warhammer Fantasy anyway. So you're looking at like a 2K armies, 3K armies, something like that.
You're looking at a similar model count, yeah. You may find that the points values are substantially higher. If I find some of our little fellas, it gives you a better indication, because there we go.
Rabble.
So Goblin was 2 points with Spear, because there used to be like half a point for Spear, 2.5 points. Anyway, so 4 points. So they're not quite double-ish, but kind of like that. So you may find that your games are banged at sort of 3,000 to 4,000 points rather than 2 to 2.5.
Yeah.
But the figure count on the tabletop is going to be the same.
Yeah, well, if you're looking at Feral Orc Marauders, you're starting out at 10 guys and then going up to Up to 25.
Up to 25.
If you want to, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it has age sizes and stuff in there as well.
Having caps on units as well is handy. Not every unit has it, but I'm not saying anybody here ever fielded 100 Night Goblins in one unit with the front rank made entirely of heroes.
A Death Star.
it was very much that.
That was always the way of it. Was you always had the big centerpiece units that were just there to hammer the hell out of your opponent.
Yeah. Was it packed full of fanatics as well, Jerry?
It may have been packed full of fanatics with madcap mushrooms. Always strike first. Batman Banner and Ruby Chalice, so -2 to hit them. You're not coming near me. Just go away.
I do like the idea of
my
this.
giants just stamp on you because I brought you.
And one of the great things about this, because this is essentially a miniatures agnostic game, you just have to have your basing done right.
Yeah.
There are so many ranges out there now that you can go to.
Mm-hmm. Well, have we look at some of the ranges in a minute, because there are various companies, 3D printing people and all sorts who are, if not sponsors, then trying to think, friends of.
Good proponents of it,
They brand their stuff. So Avatars of War is one. You'll see the Ninth Age seal stuck on things. Here you can see the main rulebook and the people in charge of said things and the production team. So it really is a fan and a community-driven project. And without the people working on it and supporting it, you wouldn't have all of this. You wouldn't have the stories, the artwork, the layout and design, everything else, because there's nobody chucking money at this in the background to promote it alongside a range of things. You see there it talks about scale and general principles, and there's some really interesting bits and pieces in it.
Do they have a disco?
Magic works. Do they have a disco? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe.
I was just curious.
I know they've got a blog and a forum these days. Probably everybody does. Who knows?
Okay, just in case people wanted to actually get involved, if they have a Discord.
Well, if you want to get involved, there's the forum.
The forums, yeah.
It's well, there was somebody
old school
an hour ago. It means it doesn't disappear that way. Where am I? I've lost myself.
Sorry, distraction.
I really like the last time that I looked at the Ninth Age. I think it was maybe a year or so after they'd basically burned the old world to the ground.
It was very black and white and text heavy. It reminded me of the old rule sets I used to get in the.
It was very 1.1 C section 5.2 this kind of thing. Whereas here they've definitely, well, as you can see, put in the effort to make it look gorgeous as well as being in depth as well. So yeah,
they've allowed round bases in. You know how you can work out easily which ones can fight back against that? By putting on a square.
So instead of imagining the line, just make it square and you have it. Have the line. Have the line. Don't imagine the line. There. Have the line. Don't imagine the line. Got it.
So this is 228 pages of loveliness. I won't go through it all. There's some interesting bits and pieces in here that I do want to draw people's attention to. Beyond the sort of the standard things you would expect to see, like magic and army lists and they have in the quick reference sections towards the end. There's some really nice artwork throughout this as well. They have statistical probabilities.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, I'm going to jump to it. So people may have heard the term math hammer, where somebody goes, I'm not sure if I'm going to make that charge, or I'm not sure if my unit will actually do any damage when I attack that unit.
Yeah.
Will I route it? Because I need to route it in one turn, or I'm going to get flanked by everything and the world will go away. And some people are really good at doing those calculations in their head, and other people can't. So they have here for various things. So, for example, we have our charges. So charges are randomized with 2d6. But then there's a couple of different things like Swift Stride give you additional dice and rerolls and reroll and Swift Stride. So you can see there, is that 8-inch charge going to be something that you could pull off? Well, yeah, you have a 2 and 3 chance of doing it.
That's cool.
With charge and a reroll. But they also do it for the likes of combats as well. So you can see down here, will I stand? Will that unit break? Depending on the various things that are coming in, your chances to cast a spell successfully, completely unnecessary for gameplay. But if you're looking to learn a bit more about the mechanics and work out how your army performs and how it should perform, that's really nice to have those sitting, and you go, well, will I get that spell off with 3d6, or do I need to go to 5, and things like that, which is interesting in itself of itself, because the casting, the magic phase, you have a spell deck that your opponent draws from, and then that tells you how many dice you and your opponent will have, and then you can channel and do other stuff as well. But then once that card's been drawn, it gets discarded. So you have 8 cards. You play a 6-turn game, and that decreases over time. However, if you ever roll a triple, you roll on the miscast table, and if you roll a triple with 3 dice, you -1 off the effect. So if you roll 3 ones, it would actually, on 3 dice, you would actually go to 0, so no effect, so it's okay. But if you rolled 5 dice or more, then you add +1, so you can go up to 777, and your caster is removed as casualty. Blah, blah, blah.
It just explodes.
So knowing probabilities are handy, because sometimes you don't need to roll those extra 2 dice and force yourself closer to exploding your wizard's face. If you go, well, chances are I will actually succeed on 3. So, it's a nice little quality of life thing to have. Not necessarily. Obviously, cover in large creatures and things like that as well are quite good. So that's the main rules. Like I say, some lovely artwork in there as well from a whole range of people. There's obviously the best, yellow and black, like Everland used to be, Sun and Style. God bless them.
See, I kind of want to do a little shopping basket to see just what it would take to get the basic army up and running for this.
From the Essence of War thing, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, just to get an idea of, what is your buy-in.
There are, on the download pages, by the way, after all of your bits and bobs and your additional background and lore, there's a whole section on the art, on the background, the world itself.
Oh, cool.
And then they used to do the 9th scroll, which were sort of periodicals. They haven't done one in a couple of years now, but there's some interesting bits and pieces in there. But some will be for older iterations or editions of books. But other pieces are still fine. And then you can see there, it's now been translated into French, German, Italian, Polish, Spanish, Chinese.
Again,
as well.
Sundancer will be happy.
So I think the Orc and Goblin book that came out last week,
he reached Chinese,
came out in all of the languages, all 7 languages on the same time, which is a good way to grow the fan base as well. But you can also see that there are army builder files for the major army builders.
Nice.
Battle Scribe, and they also have their own living in here. He said, where are we? 9th Age
search an army list.
I'm going to go for that. And then we can go all armies.
Okay.
Are they backgrounds? Oh, they might be backgrounds. I'll just do it from here. He said his inability to navigate the internet is terrible. Create an army. So you can come in here, create one, set your max points value, send it as a private one. Look, all sorts of autofills. Cool. On tabletop main stage. That must have been for UKG.
Oh, yeah.
So you just go in, select a unit, whatever it happens to be. Let's go beast. You can give him a name if you want to give him a name, and add him to your party. And then once he's added, you can start going in and tinkering. So you can give him specific upgrades or whatever it is, and the points will adjust. We make him your general because we want that. Give him the hunting call and so on and so forth. Mount options.
I assume it would be handy to have his entry open just to know what all that is. Or do they have anything on here that sort of dovetails in and shows you the rules?
Those.
There you go. You can see his rules there.
Okay, cool.
And then if you click on them, it'll take you through to the
perfect. Sorry, that's what I was curious about, because again, those are quality of life things in an army builder that you really, really want.
Yeah. What did I just buy? Oh, right, okay.
Another nice thing you can do with the army builder itself is go in and have a nosy at other people's armies as well. Don't know what that says there. So I'm going to ignore what that says.
Search an army list, is that?
That's the one I'm after. Yeah. And then we can just go in and we'll go search an army, and we'll go search for, could be anyone. Let's have a look at Dwarven Holds. Set your points, set your version, search. And then here's other people's armies. Any particularly want to see?
Possibly a dwarf one.
Let's have a look at
let's go
one or something. I don't know.
Try Thorgrim.
Oh, there you go. Thorgrims. Yeah. Where's that one?
Down the bottom.
Oh, look how far down it is. I'm going to go.
Making you work, Jerry. Making you work.
Not the in between Thorgrim, which would be better. I imagine it would have been great.
So you can see what other people are buying and the points cost they're playing at and that kind of thing, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting thing about mount and the like. So in Wamster, if you got somebody and you put them on a horse, them and their horse had stat lines. If you got somebody and put them on a beast, them and their beast had stat lines. And if you were heading them, you'd be randomizing between them.
Yeah.
In this, there's sort of a delineation. When it's small, you mostly will be working off the stats of your rider.
Right.
And then, the movement from the cavalry mount and maybe armor improvements, very old school Warhammer. But when you get bigger things like dragons and stuff like that, once it hits a certain point, you then will be just using the dragon stat line
okay.
with then maybe the character's leadership, or in this case, it's called discipline instead. So you get the sense that actually putting them on the back is people aren't going to be randomizing and hitting the tiny man hiding behind the neck occasionally. It's just a case of you've just got one stat line to aim for, which speeds things up a bit.
That's good.
See, he's a fan of Dragon Seekers and Runesmiths, Reiko Greybeards and Clan Warriors. So it means you can go in, because this is obviously a very tournament-centric community to begin with, although they are looking to expand more and more beyond that, because that's the driving force. They won't survive without getting more people in and playing the Ninth Age. So it can't all be about tournament gaming, but it means you can go in and you can find some really shit hot lists. You just can. I mean, things you wouldn't think about doing, and then you go. But the interesting thing about net built lists is actually executing the plan. Because sometimes the list is very specific to somebody's play style, or they have very detailed idea of how they're going to deploy and what way things are going to be used. And you can go, well, they've won 5 tournaments in a row, and then you just get it and push it all forward and get millered. And you go, oh, I've made a terrible mistake here.
But it's like popping Ben into an F1 car and go, do a lap.
Yeah, floor it, big lad, floor it. So,
and he crashed.
You've got your army builder and the like as well. And like I say, there is all of the background and world that they've built up around this, from the map itself to the various background and art for each of them as well. Go up, have a quick look here. Like I say, there is a blog and there's a forum. The blog gets updated every so often, and it can be things like, we've got the new Orc and Goblin Army book out, or it can be like a word from our sponsors, so to speak, where some online retailers or 3D sculptors who support the Ninth Age may have money off and things. So I know they did that with the Orc and Goblin book launching. There were several small creators had sort of special deals running for people who wanted to grab sort of 3D prints and stuff like that as well. So the blogs can be a whole host of different things, from background, lore, story, upcoming events, whatever happens to be. And the forum is, as forums are, filled with a whole host of things, from anybody looking for list building advice to rules queries and things like that. If we go to miniatures, this is good because it gives you an idea of, both the lists that are out there, 3D sculptors, their licensed sellers, companies who, are involved. So if you go, well, what were you talking about playing, Justin?
Vampire counts.
Vampire counts. So Undying Dynasty, that sounds a bit dry on Daddy.
Vampire Covenant underneath it. There you go.
Can you? Vampire Covenant, thank you. So you can go there and go, well, here's a list of suggested companies who make miniatures that will fit the style of this list. So you can go in and start saying, well, there's some zombie types and dry undead and wolf riding whites, apparently. Filthy. So as far as the miniature side go, there's a whole list of people that you can go to through that page then, and just to see what you can find. And it's a very good resource for people who just want to find fantasy miniatures as well. You're going, well, I fancy doing a Ratman army, screamed Shay. So he would go off and find his tiny rat dudes. I then go, oh, I've never heard of these before.
Oh, those are cool.
They look great for plague monks or whatever the plaguish equivalent in the vermin list is. I don't need them. I have 120 plague monks and they're still not assembled. But other non-me people may want to use this as a valuable resource for finding fantasy armies. No dry undead, though. I don't do that.
There are times when I think Jerry's just a dragon that's polymorphed into human form.
It's all about Warhammer Fantasy for me. This side of this room you can't see is just Warhammer Fantasy up the bazoo, except dry undead. So
I think the thing that's kind of important to think about there is you were saying something earlier, like they need new blood in to keep the game going on both the creative side of things and also just from the general playing side. And there's loads of companies out there that do support it. So if you are someone who, used to play Warhammer Fantasy, or you're excited about what's happening with the old world and what's coming down the line, it's not like something where you have to wait for that. If you've got the idea to make armies like that, try the 9th Age. It's all there free. So just go and download it and have a play around with it and see what you think. So
I'm not going to lie. I am tempted to do a little patrol of vampires.
Yeah.
Because it's not something I've ever painted before. It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So it's definitely the way to go. I mean, they have on the main sort of page, they have their sort of mission statement, which is put together by the founders about the game itself, where it came from, growing the setting, maintaining their current players. So they're sort of their ideas behind it. The idea to attract new players in, so they don't just want to be where the 40, 50-year-old ex-Warhammer players and their friends, they want it to be a thing of its own, standing on its own 2 feet. And there's some really interesting additions and iterations within it, and the rule set as well. Might not be for everyone. But since it's all free and it's all sitting there, why not go?
I definitely think, as Justin was saying, going for that Essence of War vibe, trying that out, seeing whether or not you like the flavor of what they're doing, and then if you don't like the game, well, you've just bought yourself a little tiny army that you could use in Kings of War or another game.
Grab their print and play 2D models, or go to one-page rules and get their print and play 2D. Papercraft stuff.
My thinking is I might dig into this, build a little army list, and when I'm at Expo this year, that'll be my Expo challenge, is to actually find those miniatures that I would need for this. I think that could be an interesting one for folks to give a go if you want to join me.
Yeah, cool.
Fancy, very fancy. So there we go. The 9th Age. Get it before there's a 10th Age. Beat the rush. Beat the rush.
Who needs the old world, man?
Right. We shall take a quick switch, and when we come back, we'll be taking a look at the news.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
Okay, we are back with the news, and we're going to continue on the fantasy theme.
Yes, we are.
Ooh, fantasy. Where are we going?
So we're going to be starting things off with another big fantasy mass battle game. We've done the 9th Age. We can't stop there. So this one comes from the designer behind Gaslands and also A Billion Suns, which a lot of people on OTT will know that Jerry was very excited about. Still probably is quite excited about, I think.
I still want to play.
Yeah. So this is Mike Hutchinson's new endeavor that has just recently finished on Kickstarter, but I wanted to talk about it anyway because it sounds pretty freaking awesome, and I definitely wanted to get this out there to more people. So this is a mass battle fantasy war game which has been designed with the premise of playing absolutely huge games with loads of units, but very quickly. Okay. So it's set in a world that has been developed by Hutchinson, which is called Rotvalden, which is a kind of underground kingdom, as you can see here, rather than it being spread out across, a planet or something.
It's not an analog of Europe. I like this.
Well, yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, this is fairly planet spanning anyway, really. I guess it goes all the way down to the Earth's core, really. But so the whole idea is that there are these characters called the Haunted, and they have found these magical artifacts deep within the bowels of the Earth that have allowed them to summon up massive armies. And so this just become this unending war between different fantasy races, different armies, as they're trying to stake their claim on different portions of the world and sort of make their own kingdoms and that kind of thing. The thing that's really interesting about this game in its entirety, though, is that, and they've done a nice little quick fire rule set for you to go and have a look at, which is really cool, is that, as I said, the premise is huge armies. And that normally means in other games that things just get bogged down and it takes ages to play and all that kind of thing. The other emphasis here is on quick, fast, and very, very brutal combat resolution and damage and that kind of thing. So the basis of the game and how the kind of combat works, as that's kind of at the core of everything that you're doing here, really. It's a big battle, right? Is that there's no like to hit, to wound, armor save, all that kind of thing. Instead, you look at what your unit is, you look at what the opposing unit is, and from a pool of dice, you assign them to it, and you just roll to hit that target number. So if you're looking at this one here, say you've got a unit of light infantry, and they're fighting a heavy infantry unit, so like a unit of like heavily armored dwarves or something, then you're just looking for 5s. Once you've hit those target numbers, you've assigned what's called Doom tokens to that unit. And once that gets to their courage value, that unit becomes broken and it is just removed from the tabletop. So there's no individual miniature removal, as you'd see in games like Warhammer Fantasy Battles and stuff like that, or Oathmark, for example. And it's more in line with kind of Kings of War and that kind of thing, where sort of the damage and the fatigue builds up on a unit
until the whole thing breaks. They don't run off in drips and drabs. The whole unit decides they've had enough.
Yeah. The other thing that's really nice about combat resolution and also shooting is that every unit, depending on what it is and what it's doing, just has the same pool of dice. So in combat, everybody rolls 10 dice. In shooting, you roll 5 dice and you look for those target numbers. So shooting's done exactly the same as in melee. So, for example, ranged infantry shooting at another ranged infantry unit needs 5 pluses to hit and that kind of thing. When it comes to combat with multiple units, you have to assign 3 dice to all of your targets, and then you can split things up however you like. So say there's something you really definitely want to kill, then you can put a few more into that, try and take it off the board and that kind of thing.
Can't ignore the heavy armored thing hitting you in the face just to get cheap kills on something else.
Yeah, Billy has to fight the big orc. Yeah, someone has to be dedicated to doing damage to something on that side of the battlefield. Yeah. The other thing that's really nice about the game is that it's very open to you building your armies as you see fit. So you'll notice that there was nothing in here of like orc infantry, elf infantry, dwarf infantry. You basically go onto the internet, as Mike did in one of his videos, and you say, I really like the look of that unit. And then you sit down and you determine what kind of unit it would be in the game. And then you just give it qualities that would be assigned to it. So say, for example, we were building, what we're going for here? Big stompy thing, right? Yep. So say it's a giant or, an ogre or something like that. That would be monstrous infantry, or it might be a monster. There you go, at the bottom.
I think monster for big stompy.
And then you think of what kind of strengths and weaknesses it might have. So let's say that should we say that maybe it's brutal? That might be a good quality for it to have.
Brutal deluxe. Oh, we can have multiple strengths.
You can have multiple strengths, and
so
it just what if it was brutal and
I imagine
sneaky.
Oh yeah, that could be cool
for a giant, a sneaky giant.
He's wearing a hood, but he might be cowardly or something like that.
Or self-destructive.
Or self-destructive.
Because again, it's not so smart.
Yeah,
and self-destructive, I think, just means he goes home at the weekend and just drags himself into oblivion, thinking about all the faces of the people he murdered.
And so what's really cool about this is that it takes the base level for whatever your unit type is, and then it will add points or remove points depending on the weaknesses and strengths you give it. And so there's some really nice emphasis on you trying to make really thematic armies, because obviously in the grand scheme of things, why would you ever want to give a weakness to something?
Yeah.
But if say you were making an army of skeleton warriors, well, it would sometimes make sense to give them the fragile keyword, for example, just because, they're just big dusty bone men. And so that means that your points cost comes lower, so you'll be able to take more units and that kind of thing later on down the line. You'll also notice that points in this are pretty freaking huge. So this is already on 1,000 points. So I think Mike was saying that he made a Chaos Dwarf army that was maybe 5 or 6 units, and that was around 4,000 points.
Maybe narrow footprint, Jerry?
Yeah.
No, because that's a chariot.
Oh,
your footprint is defined by what you're playing. So if it's wide, it's a unit, and if it's narrow, it's like a monster or a chariot.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so there's a really nice emphasis on kind of building whatever armies you want, and sort of and just having lots of fun with the freedom that the rules give you. I obviously it can be gamed and that kind of thing, but I really like that they've put a lot of things in here so that it's sort of focused on the idea of you being a little bit more narrative and playing around with that kind of thing as well. When it comes to actually generating battles and stuff, this is really cool as well. So you just have D66 tables. So you roll to see what your battlefield looks like, what your main objective might be, what your second one would be, and then you sort of roll for terrain and all sorts of different things like that. They have got magic and magical weapons and stuff in the game as well. So magic is done through generating magical gems. So when you start the game, for every 1,000 points you get a gem, and that can be spent to cast magical abilities. And then as you go through the game as well, your wizards will just generate spells and magical power and stuff as you go. There's also what's called a fortune deck. So this is a set of cards that can be used. You just draw the cards and you can use them to maybe turn the tide of battle in the heart of combat, or give your units a burst of bravery or something like that. And so there's some really nice little bits and pieces that have been thrown into the advanced rules that allow you to take things to the next level. As you were seeing, the quick start rules are totally free for you to go and download and just have fun with. The army builder is also free to go and have a look at. You just got to make a copy of the Google sheet and just put it into your own Google Drive, and away you go. They were running the Kickstarter, where you could get your hands on the rule book and its different variants, as well as a whole bunch of cards and dice and doom trackers, so you don't have to have dice behind units and that kind of thing as well, or whatever you'd use. I'd preferably use skulls behind units.
Skulls of your enemy. Yeah.
Although here's a thought for you. This would allow me to do something which I think could be very entertaining. An army of, say, 8 giants, but each and every one of them is an individual.
Yeah, you could easily do that. Yeah.
As long as you can identify them and your opponent can as well.
Yeah.
Of course, that's the obvious thing. But I think that could be really funny because, even if it was just a regular unit, oh, no, that unit is actually pretty good at taking charges. Oh, I thought it was this one. No. See the way I've colored the base and it's marked on my sheet?
Yeah. There's a lot of freedom for you to make whichever kind of armies you want to do and sort of play around with different ideas. The only thing that I'd say that is kind of missing, but I hope they kind of bake into this, is that Mike's come up with some nice background for this world and stuff, but I'd love to see lots more art, and hopefully that's the kind of thing we'll see over the next little while from, I think it's Crom who's done the artwork for the cover and stuff like that. I really want to see more of that and kind of building on the kind of background to all of this, because that's the thing that's really going to sell it to me, is kind of be I really want to make a Hobgoblin focused army that's really driven by the kind of background and the narrative of this world. I know that Mike has basically just said pick whichever armies you want from whatever you've got lying around, but it'll be interesting to see what they do in terms of maybe some specific miniatures perhaps from different creators. That could be kind of cool, but
it'll be interesting because with Mike's other games, he's deliberately not gone into detail about any of the. I mean, there is a little bit of a background in A Billion Suns. There's a little bit of background in Gaslands, but it's really up to you to doesn't want to impose restrictions. So I don't know if we'll see much beyond what he's already sort of hinted at for that. There'll be a bit in there about the world, and then I think after that it's go nuts yourself, because sometimes you'll get. People will look at something and it becomes prescriptive. It's like, well, the author said this. The author said you can think of whatever you want, but nobody said this, so it has to be this.
And I suppose with it having a different sort of world, if Jerry wants to do his wet undead, they come from the cave of wet, dank nastiness, which keeps them moist.
It's where the shrooms live. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
It's just the one of the miniatures that they did as part of the Kickstarter was this like Hobgoblin King. Yeah. And I just really loved the aesthetic of that. And and especially the cover image that we got as well. So I think in my head, I kind of want to make armies that fit that theme and that look and things. So, but
Garrick Corrupted. Him?
Yes, that one. He was available. I think he was as a 75mm model, or you could get the STL FUD. I think it was.
So, yeah, you can get him as a resin multi-part model.
Yeah, but yeah, if you're looking for another quick, easy, fun mass battle game to dive into where the focus is on lots and lots of units on the tabletop and big bloody battles, definitely go and check out Hobgoblin from Mike Hutchinson, and also that logo is just made for t-shirts.
Well, yeah. It's also due. He's hoping to have it in production by August and out by October at the latest, but hopefully before October, which means if you missed the Kickstarter, I imagine there'll be a late pledge, although he hasn't definitely said that.
But there won't be long to wait anyway, really.
But if there isn't a late pledge, then it's only a few months before it's due to hit retail. So hopefully it shouldn't be too far off for you.
Yeah.
Less too far off for me because I backed the Kickstarter. But, you know. Don't worry about it.
I missed out. I meant to do it yesterday, but I was distracted by something and I forgot.
Shame.
Oh, well.
Shame.
There's always late pledge.
Yeah.
Right. What's up next?
So next up, we're turning to another kind of like little tiny indie style development. There's lots of indies at the start of this week's episode. But this one comes from Blacksite Studios, who a lot of people will know have been doing really fun stuff with their different games. They've done Yasiga. They've done that awesome moon-based combat game between the US and the Russians, which is pretty cool. Luna, which is nice.
Luna, yeah.
But they've also been working with a creator called Malev, who has developed this game called Demonship, which is very retro and very much inspired by the likes of Doom and Alien and all those kind of games. The premise of the game, it's a solo adventure for you on the tabletop, where you play as the survivor, with whoever that might be.
I'm Nathan Clark,
who has who's been woken up on a doomed ship that is about to be that it is being infested by demons, and you have to escape to the pods and get off the ship, blowing it up in the process before they take your life. As you sort of dive into the game, it's all procedurally generated, so you'll roll dice to determine the rooms that you go into and the demons that you'll face, and you have a kind of path that you need to be going on. So, for example, at the start of the game, you need to get to the engine rooms, and then you need to get to this get to the next room, and then you need to get to the the escape bay and all that kind of thing. And as you go through, you'll be rolling dice to see what kind of terrain you set up on the board. It uses a lot of the MDS stuff that Blacksite has been working on previous to this, but you could also just play it on grids as well if you really wanted to. I like the actual Demonship box though, because it comes with some really nice bits and pieces of training if you kind of build everything up very quickly. It looks and feels to me like one of those indie video games that kind of would play on like iOS or Android or something, which is kind of nice.
And it's got a real 90s vibe going on.
Yes, it's very retro, which I really like.
Can we call 90s retro yet?
Yes. I think so, yes.
30 years.
Yeah. CDs and tapes, it's still that's retro now. But yeah, so you dive in. One of the other big things about this is that it's very brutal. They have toned down the brutality from the first iteration of the game. I believe it was played at Adepticon, and it was so brutal that people were dying in the first room.
Nice.
The pre-order version of the game, the pre-orders that are going out right now, and the fact that the game's available for you to go and pick up and stuff, is giving them a little bit of time to kind of like tweak the rules and stuff like that. But the rules that Malev and the team have settled on right now are a lot more forgiving. They're still terrifyingly brutal, but they're a lot more forgiving than they used to be.
So I kind of want a nightmare mode box
with
those original rules.
Yeah. To give you an idea of it, when you go into a room, you roll a set of D6. And I think it's 1 to 3, those are enemy dice, and 4, 5, and 6 are your dice to play with. So if you like go into a room and you roll like 1, 6, and then everything else is like a 1 or a 3, you just have to try and defend yourself against demons and that kind of thing, which is really
clearly
cool.
The game for me.
Yeah. And Jerry dies in the first room every single time.
It was just like Nightmare.
You'll also note there was a couple of additional. So these are the miniatures that Blacksite have worked on, very Doom-esque in very many regards.
Well, that one there's very Tetsuo.
Yes.
The Iron Man with his big gun face.
Gun face.
Mm.
Yeah. Just him sneezing and bullets coming out.
Yep.
But there's also a couple of additional survivors as well. So one of them is Malev, which is based on the creator of the game. And there's also Witty, which is based on Whittlegoblin, who's a YouTuber and Twitch streamer who helped to promote the game when it was first coming out. So they kind of immortalized her as a miniature, which I thought was a really nice little idea.
Cool.
Is it purely solo, or are we having any hope of having like a multiplayer one? Because I think the idea of this, with you and a couple of mates rolling in and rocking into a room to try and murder demons, could be fun.
It's currently just a solo experience, but I'm sure if it does well, maybe Malev will look at doing some other stuff to kind of make it co-op or something like that. That could be kind of cool. I suppose if you wanted to kind of jerry rig it, you could have 2 survivors and you could just roll the dice. Yep. And then just assign them to different characters.
More dice, more demons. Oh wait, there's 2 of us, and oops, 12 of them.
Yeah, but if you're in the mood for something retro, something solo, and yes, those survivors actually come in that packaging, like the action figure packaging. So very cool.
And then you need to get 2 because you have to keep 1 pristine.
You got to keep 1 pristine and 1 for the
never removed from box.
Yeah, you can still smell the new action figure smell. But yeah, so these are available for you to go and check out now from Black Site. Definitely go and give us a look if you're interested in something a little bit weird, a little bit wacky. So very cool.
I really like it. I love the idea of just procedurally generating the crazy ship that you're on.
Yeah, that's very cool.
and trying desperately to fight your way off the crazy ship you're on. That's always good. I mean, everybody loves Event Horizon. Everybody loves Doom. Yeah. There's a touch of the Larry Nevin there as well in that Survivor alongside the Doom guy.
Give me a little bit of Dead Space.
A little bit Isaac Clarke as well. Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I said it wrong.
Well, no, Dead Space is the game, and the character in it is Isaac Clarke. So
I said Nathan.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
Got the name wrong. I'm sorry, Internet.
I was giving you a pass, Justin.
No. No, I must be shamed.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I shame you. Shame bell, engage. Anyway.
Shame.
Moving on from moving from grimdark sci-fi to fantasy. We're going back to fantasy. We're all, hopping between these genres. We're looking at some more stuff coming out for Privateer Press's Warmachine, because we got a look at the first Warlock-Led Battlegroup for Warmachine Mark IV.
Trollbloods.
Yeah, if it was going to be anyone, it was going to be the Trollbloods. So these are the Southern Creel's Brine Blood Marauders.
He's using a hammerhead shark as a hammer.
Yes,
I am on board with this.
And he has a squid flail as well. I mean, that's amazing. Up until this point, we've had warcasters leading the way. Mm-hmm. So we've had Kador, we've had Sigmar, and we've had Orgoth. But now we're seeing the first of the warlocks coming to Warmachine Mark IV. So you get Admiral Boom Howler, who's the Lady Trollblood that you see there on the right.
No relation.
And then you have a couple of additional miniatures as well. So you've got 2 war beasts. You've got the Reef Troll and the Deep-Born Dire Troll. Once again, they come with all the different components because they're 3D printed, as the rest of the ranges at the moment. So you just stick the magnets into the sockets, and away you go. And so you can make some nice, diverse characters to use on the tabletop and different war beasts.
I'm in love with a faction.
Yeah, it looks very, very cool.
It's a hell of a shield.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I wonder what happened to the rest of the ship.
Most likely he shot it with that cannon.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, you can give it big fins, anchor.
Yeah.
Narwhal skull spike.
Why would you ever go with any weapon other than the squid
shark.
and the hammerhead shark?
Yeah. Unless you want to hit somebody with a net full of tentacle things.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Being hit with a sock full of Snicker balls.
Oh man, wouldn't even let it be Satsumas.
Yeah. But yeah, so these miniatures were available as part of a preview battle group, so you still might be able to get your hands on these at the moment, but they will be available later on in the year, according to the roadmap from the folks at Privateer Press. If you're interested in their rules, they should be available for you to go and check out in the Warmachine app that they've developed to go alongside the game, so you can see how it works and, help them with the playtesting of the units and that kind of stuff as well, which is really nice to see. But yeah, nice to see Warlocks finally popping up. It should be noted, you'll notice that in the background that said Warmachine, because Hordes is no longer like a separate thing. Everything is under the Warmachine banner. It was always in the Warmachine Imren world anyway, so it makes sense to kind of combine the mechanics into the one, which is really cool.
I do wonder if the Focus and Fury mechanics are going to switch up because they're keeping it under the Warmachine banner now. That
will be interesting to see. So it'll be fun to see if anybody has actually had a look at it in the app, it'd be really fun to hear your comments down below on what you think of the new Warmachine stuff and the Warlocks and things. But we're just waiting for Circle Orboros now. Bring forth the werewolves. I want werewolves.
Werewolves. Werewolves, worst wolves. Right.
We're werewolves, not swearwolves.
No, swearwolves. God. Right. Let's burn some heretics then. More stuff from Games Workshop, which is surprising.
Before we get to that, though, we've got to talk Cowboys, Jerry.
Cowboys.
We can't miss the Cowboys. I need to talk about Cowboys.
Yes, we won't miss the Cowboys.
Yeah. So you know how earlier, Justin, you were talking about papercraft stuff,
yes,
right?
I was saying it was a nice aspect.
A nice addition, yeah? Yes. Well, Peter's Paperboys, who I bloody love, have decided to jump on the Wild West wagon. See what I did there? With their set of 28mm paper cowboys and Indians and stuff for you to throw into your games. So they've done, this is all illustrated by Peter Dennis. So if you don't know Peter Dennis, he's the wonderful fellow who has illustrated many books from Osprey and historical books and all sorts of different things like that. And Peter's Paperboys is his collection of paper models that you can print off at home and use to make huge armies. You'll also might know that a lot of his stuff has been turned into the Wofen range as well. So you've been able to see plastic versions of his stuff at the same time. But these are his Cowboys. So the big bundle comes with, and I'm going to go into an American accent now and annoy everybody, dudes and drifters, sheriffs and shooters, bells, bums, and barkeeps.
That's a wee bit West Country, son.
I love it.
Right there, Mr. Frodo. Are we going to the Wild West?
What part of Cork was...
I know, I screwed up too.
Oh, man. You want to do a bad impression, Shay, of somewhere completely unrelated?
No, I think I'm okay.
No,
I think we've had enough of those for today.
Shay gets to keep his credit. Yeah.
God.
The set comes with loads of cowboys and outlaws and everything on foot, but then you also get mounted versions of different characters as well. As you would have seen from these are papercraft, so you're going to be swapping the paintbrush for a knife and some scissors marker and a tongue stuck out the side of your mouth as you go.
See, I can't do that these days. I just taste the tash.
Oh, well, there you go. You get some of your lunch that you left over from before. But you also get in the set a nice stagecoach, which you need to rob, which is really nice. And then in addition to all of that, there's also a bundle of terrain that the Paperboys have been working on. So this is for their town of Resurrection. And you get all of the stuff that you'd expect. So you get things like a saloon.
Resurrection.
Yeah.
It's a great name.
I love it. Yes.
Fabulous. It's almost as good as John whenever cold callers get onto him. He just answers, "Hello, Lion's Crematorium. You kill him, we grill him."
Exactly. John seems like he'd fit right in here, but there we go. So yeah, if you're maybe looking at games like Dead Man's Hand, Legends of the Old West, or What a Cowboy, which is the new one from Two Fat Lardies, and you don't particularly fancy the idea of doing any painting of miniatures, but instead you're a dab hand with a pair of scissors, then maybe go and have a look at say that 2 times. Peter's Paperboys.
This might be amazing for Black Scorpion's Tombstone.
Yeah. Tombstones and the rules set out there. It's very good, very worth diving into. And because you get your hands on just oodles and oodles of characters that you just need to cut out and stick together, get the Pritt stick ready. This could be a very inexpensive way for you to try out some games and have some fun in the Wild West, as a lot of people seem to be doing at the moment. So yeah,
I always love seeing when Peter does something 3-dimensional in his Paperboy lines.
Yeah.
Because if you don't follow him on Facebook, and you really should, you'll often get tests put up there where he's sitting going, how do I make an elephant? Do I do it front on, do I do it sideways on? And he'll do them in just plain sheets of paper. So he'll just do like a pencil image, and then you'll just get these various sort of constructions appearing. It's like, that doesn't work. That kind of works. Let's mix the two. Likewise with this stagecoach, because obviously everything else is flat. All the characters are flat. But then the stagecoach itself is built to be 3-dimensional, to fill the sort of the base, for want of a better word, that it's on. And then you've got your little flat 2D horses again. It just looks terrific. So I really like whenever he chucks these bits and pieces in there. Obviously, the terrain's always good.
I'm assuming he's a student of origami.
No, glue and scissors all the way.
Oh, fair enough.
Glue and scissors, that's where life is really set out. It'll be interesting to see if, because obviously Peter does a lot of stuff just through the Paperboy range.
Yes.
On his own website, but every now and again he'll do little collaborations, and he's released multiple books with Andy Callan. Never mind the bill hooks.
Yes.
And Andy has written rules, so you would buy a book and it will contain all the pages of coloured stuff that you need to cut out, and then the rules that go with. All you need to supply is a couple of dice stolen out of Monopoly set, because Monopoly is the worst game ever and doesn't deserve any dice to be. Just harvest Monopoly for whatever bit you can for proper games.
So 2 dice.
But I always like seeing those, because they're really good ways of getting kids involved.
Yes.
There's the crafting side, cutting stuff out, sticking it together, covering the table in paste, and then afterwards you can set them down, and they've now built their army, and they can now play with their army. So it's a great way to teach them about history, hobby, crafting, all of one.
And the importance of safety scissors.
They're too blunt to get around to find, but it's given that it'll be an invaluable lesson if they cut themselves. It's just how that one works. They won't do it again, but yeah, definitely one to check out.
By Jerry.
No, not that Jerry. I think you'll find that everybody was on board with me last week as well. I'm just saying, my worldly advice for raising children is particularly spot on. Right, okay, now into the GW then.
Yes, now we go to GW. Yes. So if you want to go from the frontiers of America, then you can instead head to the frontiers of the 41st millennium and get yourself stuck in with a inquisitorial kill team as part of Ashes of Faith. So this is the kind of, it's not a continuation of the season structure that we'd seen previously for Kill Team. Ashes of Faith kind of sits as I'd say like a stopgap between what's happened with Gallowfall and what's about to happen as we head down to the planet and find out the next step of the storyline and where it all goes from here. So in Ashes of Faith, you take control of a inquisitorial kill team with a bunch of new agents. It's a modular kit, as it were, so you can build a whole range of different characters. So each of them comes with a few different options in order for you to change up how you'd build them. But you've got your kind of classic set of Imperial agents there with sort of the pious members of the church. You've got a servitor there. You've got your kind of Imperial veteran. You've got your scribe that's sort of working in the background to list everything that you've found, and then suddenly explodes when it realizes that you've done too much heresy. If you're Eisenhorn, maybe.
This is what I was going to ask. Where's Henry Cavill as Eisenhorn?
Well, yeah,
perfect time to put that miniature out there.
It would have been, yeah. But this inquisitorial team are going to be going up against a chaos cult led by the Dark Commune, who have decided to try and turn a world into a haven for their dark gods. Some interesting little twists in Ashes of Faith, in that it's very much a narrative experience. It's not sort of focused on that kind of competitive small group of soldiers beating each other up on a small battlefield for like objectives and that kind of thing. There's still a lot of that in there, but the focal point is very much on your games being slightly bigger. So you can have sort of like around between 20 and 30 models on a tabletop rather than it being sort of cut down to like 10 to 20 or something like that. Although obviously many kill teams are much smaller than that. And you play through a extended storyline where you try to save this world as these Imperial agents. And the Inquisition can kind of call on additional support. So in the set, you get some Sisters of Silence and some Tempestus Scions that you've requisitioned from the Forces of Good to use in your games alongside you. And then on the other side of things, the Dark Commune come with a whole host of those kind of cultists that you see there in the center. But the interesting thing with these is that you don't use the cultists alongside the different sort of mutated variants of them at the same time. Throughout the campaign, throughout games, those cultists get turned into those twisted mutants. So you start to turn your guys that are just like, hey, this seems like a good job where I can earn some credits.
One step to godhood.
Yeah. So
what's that? Unlimited power. Oh, wait.
Yeah, unlimited
third
power.
arm.
Yeah, unlimited power means more wings and sliding talons and everything else in between. So,
why is the Witch King there?
Yes, that's the Dark Commune. Yeah, they are very Nazgul.
He's on vacation.
When he's not conquering Middle Earth, he's in the grim dark future. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, how this set goes down with people. I like the shift towards a more narrative focused. It's obviously nice to see inquisitorial stuff popping up. I think if you're playing something like Imperium Maledictum, which is the role-playing game from Cubicle 7, and you want to, as Jerry would say, incorrectly play the game with miniatures, then this would be a perfect chance for you to actually build characters to use in that game and use them on the tabletop if you really wanted to. It's an interesting. It was an interesting curveball from Games Workshop for them to throw into the mix for Kill Team, and the proof will be in the pudding to see whether or not it lands well with people. So yeah.
I like the idea of the actual cultists changing over time into various types of chaos spawn / demon.
Yes,
because that gives you at least some sort of sense of progression.
Mm-hmm.
Also, kind of makes me want to murder all the cultists as quickly as possible. Once the first one splits and turns into that, you want to get rid of the rest of them very, very quickly. Not sure about this one up top though. This pinky one, crab crawling its way forward, love it. This one here, that's just a massive mouth and arm, great. Some of the smaller ones, terrific as well. This one at the top looks like it's bits left over.
So what? Someone just took a pot of glue and just poured it into their bits box and pulled it out?
Yeah, pretty much. I do.
That's what the Chaos Gods did when they made him. Yeah.
I appreciate the skin being ripped open and the head of the unfortunate still being there as it sort of flaps around. But the rest of it just looks really weird.
Yeah.
It looks like one of the... what was their... Remember they released like ghoul ogres, and some of them had bat wings, and some of them just ran about and stuff.
Vargulfs.
Could be, sure. Yeah. It looks like they've got one of those bodies and just went and stick a dragon head on as an arm.
Why is there no flamer? No heavy flamer?
Why is there no heavy flamer? I'm sure there is in the...
You might find some bits to do it, or just give one of your sisters a silencer flamer.
One of these people out here, drop the hot shot lasgun, give them a flamer, off you go.
Yeah. But the Inquisition can call on more support as well. So they've also said that you can introduce the like boarding party as well if you wanted to. And the kill teams can also be used away from Ashes of Faith as normal kill teams. So you can do a Dark Commune and Cultist kill team and a normal Inquisitorial one where you don't have all the extra miniatures thrown in there at the same time. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm fairly sure it's going to sell out immediately on Saturday, and no one will be able to get it. But there we go.
Yeah. But if you're looking to get it, make sure to come across to OnTableTop.com, where we have the OTT store.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Buy merch.
Jay, he's giving you more work, man. It's outrageous, isn't it?
This is why no one likes him.
Warhamster Underworlds, then.
Yeah, so closing things off for Games Workshop for this week. We also got the news that there's going to be a new Warhammer Underworlds starter set coming out. So this one replaces the previous set that was kind of lower buy-in. So rather than you paying kind of like 50, 60 quid for the season boxes, the starter box, well, at least the previous one, came in around kind of like 30 to 40 quid. Again, have a look on store.ontabletop for all your Warhammer Underworlds needs. Buy merch.
Do I get to gripe at lazy sculpting again?
But the set comes with two of your previous warbands that were released during the Shadespire arc. So you get Far Strider's Fighters and the Sepulchral Guard. So If Lloyd hasn't already seen these, he probably will now. These are just your push fit plastic miniatures that you'd normally get in an Underworld set, quick and easy to paint up and throw into the game. The thing that's really nice about this is that they've taken these older warbands, and instead of you getting like a set of cards and then having to deck build with these, you can now just get Rivals decks for these. So the Rivals deck is a pre-constructed deck that is specifically themed to either the Fast Riders fighters or the Sepulchral Guard, and you just take that out of the box and you start playing the game. As some community members have pointed out, it's a little bit strange to have both a core box set and also the season boxes, because as some community members were saying, the season boxes are almost just as approachable as these. It just seems that they're costed at a higher level because they come with the new warbands in them, I guess, which is a bit of a shame. But this one does come with like some extra bits and pieces to help you get started in the game, like you get the Getting Started book and all that kind of thing. But if you're interested in playing Warhammer Underworlds, you don't want to buy just a random set, or you don't want to pay like 50, 60 quid for the big new season box, then maybe go and have a look at this one. It's a very nice little hybrid of card, board, and miniatures game, which I would recommend going to have a look at. And look, no bat wings.
No bat wings. Yeah. Lloyd would probably be fine with these. They look like real people.
Yeah.
Who are dead and then imposed on white, so very difficult to see.
And I love the individuality of them.
Yeah, it's really cool. I always say that if you're interested in Age of Sigmar, go and have a look at Warcry warbands and Warhammer Underworlds, because they come with really unique sculpts for the different characters that will give you a taste of the different factions and maybe be a nice in for you to start collecting in that world. So yeah, very cool.
That chicken's only got one eyeball left to peck out. Just this guy in the middle. And then that chicken's going to be pointless. Yeah. Just saying. Once this guy's completely blind like the rest. Yeah. And then he'll realize it was a futile gesture because they don't use their eyes anymore. Hoisted by your own chickeny petard.
Silly Aether Wing.
Yeah. Right. That wraps us up for the news. We shall return in just one swish to finish off the show. Okay, we are back, and to round out the show, we're going to be kicking off with a bit of 3D printing.
Oh,
for the 3D printing monkeys are below us. Hello, monkeys. Who are we looking at then this week, Ben?
So we're actually going to be taking a look at the May offerings and also the larger offerings as well, from someone called Reconquer Designs.
Reconquista.
I thought that we had potentially seen just enough of fantasy and sci-fi. And so I thought maybe we should dive into a little bit of the historical, although, of course, I am a fantasy baby. But, yeah.
Well, I mean, you could use them. You could use them for Equitane if you wanted.
You could, exactly. If you're trying some Night Age,
or something like Saga, for example.
Yeah. Or perhaps some Bretonnian.
Yeah. But Reconquer have been working away on a whole range of different miniatures, some of which we'll dive into a little bit deeper later. But there's a very strong focus on the likes of the medieval period and everything else in between, which is really cool. Their most recent selection of offerings was surrounded around the first king of Portugal, but also a bunch of troops and stuff that might want to follow him into the heart of battle, which would be quite nice. And one of the things that I really like about the stuff from Reconquer is that you get some really nice dynamic sculpts for a lot of the infantry models and stuff like that. You also get stuff like that, which is really nice. So you get additional kind of stuff that would be really fun for scenarios and things. So you get a kind of like a tavern, as it were, and the tavern keeper and his wife, perhaps, or maybe the other way around. Who knows? And
a one-stop shop if you're just getting into an era or a specific army, faction, nation. You can get the army plus terrain that matches.
Yes, yes, which I think is really good. And obviously, as you can see from the terrain there and things that we got that they were doing in the set, there's lots of detail to it and things. But then also, sort of, as you look back towards the infantry, I love that they're all in different poses. You've got some nice individuality to them. So especially if you're playing something like a skirmish game or something. So maybe you're diving into something like the Baron's War, for example. I think these are really nice because they give you a good handful of troops that you'd be able to use to kind of create a very dynamic and interesting warband where you could name all the characters and stuff if you really wanted to, which I thought was quite nice. But the other thing that's nice about this stuff as well is that because they're going in this route of doing, or at least in this set of stuff anyway for May, like a kingdom that you wouldn't necessarily think of.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't really have thought about designing an army that was based around, the King of Portugal.
Portuguese, yeah.
Yeah. But
the Portuguese were vicious.
Yeah. Well,
you just run them as Spanish.
Yeah.
Just to really
that'll make them happy.
That'll
make them happy.
Iberian Peninsula. One go.
But if you're looking to, take on the likes of the Moors and stuff, or you're wanting to head off on a little bit of a crusade or something, then you've got some pretty awesome bits and pieces there you could use in order to do that. Maybe you're looking at that, you're talking of awesome games, and maybe looking at Outtremor and stuff like that from Warhost. And going down that route if you wanted to do that with the Barons War and stuff. But yeah,
enough for a crusade anyway, because you've got
there's at least 3. So
I do like that in that design. The guy on the far right, his chainmail is just a little bit tight on him. He's got a little bit of belly going on.
Probably not that tight. Whenever you used to wear chainmail, you'd hike it up and pull it over the belt, because then the belt and your hips support a lot of the weight. Otherwise, it's all on your shoulders.
Oh, I know. I have worn chainmail.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, so all the stuff there, as you can see, it comes in kind of like that 28 to 32 mil scale ish. So you could use it for whatever games you wanted to dive into and have fun with. And things like the terrain has also been designed for small 3D resin printers, which is quite nice, especially with the new stuff. So it's been designed so it breaks down, which is quite easily for you to do that kind of thing, which is quite nice. And
needs more animal pelts on that.
Yes, soaked in water probably to keep the hot tar and arrows off it. But yeah. It's stuff like this that I think is really nice about what Reconquer does, because in their wider range of things, they've got a whole host of different bits and pieces that will be great for making alternative armies and scenarios very interesting. So, sieges are one of those things that I think everybody dreams of, but no one ever gets the chance to actually run them. But if you've got a 3D printer fired up and ready, you could get your hands on siege towers and trebuchets and all that kind of things. So for you to use in your games. I was playing a game last week called Chivalry, and in it they called trebuchets trebuchets, and I was like, what? Nice. This is wrong.
we would also have accepted very buckets, although it's just
yes.
I don't know if that counts because it doesn't have its bucket on it. It's just being peasant powered.
Yeah,
just being regular.
I do like the sapper kit that's there.
Mm.
I'm actually digging up towards a castle wall
to go and herd some pigs inside and set them on fire. Yeah,
only if they've got heavy lamps. Otherwise, that's just unnecessarily cruel, and you've got very quick bacon.
Yeah, the fat burns at a high temperature, bring down the walls.
Don't like to have to chase my bacon. That's why.
But yeah, no, that is really cool. And it's the kind of stuff that, isn't necessarily done by a lot of companies and will be really nice to see thrown into the mix. And I think 3D printing obviously opens up the gamut for you to do that kind of stuff, really.
Well, it's not something you ever see in games, is someone actually having a unit digging a trench toward a wall. With this, you can do out the sections and actually have it as like a narrative component to your game.
Yeah, yeah. You could even do it. You could even do it. It's kind of like, you do a skirmish before you do your main battle or something, where maybe you get to send out a sortie to try and kill the sappers or something in the trenches and that kind of thing.
Do them up like keppers before they try and start digging down and undermining your walls.
I like that you get the ones with the legs cut off as well, so you can see them walking around in the mire.
Yeah, halfway in there.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. But yeah, I mean, the Reconquer range is fairly extensive. There's a lot of stuff in here. I think in particular, if you're looking at stuff like the Crusades, they've pretty much got you nailed, I think. They have, the kind of armies of Christendom that you would have thought of, alongside lots of the Islamic States armies and that kind of thing as well. So, they've got you fairly well serviced when it comes to pilgrims and crusading knights, wandering generals, rampaging cavalry and everything else in between, really, which I think is really cool.
Just seeing how much of a difference the 15 to 28 sculpts were. I think it's just how some of the files are designed with the printable components, so wheels and the like being already attached. rather than being
Yeah,
separate.
keep the fiddly bits.
But yeah, there's some
Although I do
stunning
see
stuff in there.
they have a scenery range as well, which would be nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Look, Andalusian crossbowmen. Right filth.
How cool do those look?
Always good.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to go on a crusade, always have some filthy crossbow.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the extra fatigue they'll generate in Saga. That'll be more than made up for in your opponent dying.
What's quite nice about it as well is that it's nice to see the painted objects at the end as well. So you look at those and you think, are those actually going to be as detailed as, they are in the renders? And then you see the final ones and you're like, actually, no, yep, they've got all the folds of the cloth and everything like that. They all look.
Although they're wavering on square base.
It's a knobbly base. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of these fashionable bases. Not home to, but there's not much can be done about it, unfortunately.
The
I haven't yet
couture.
worked out how I can get around to everybody's house with a razor saw and fix their bases for them. I'm starting to spiral from my house and working my way out. Just
what you really need is like some form of laser satellite that'll just burn it down through their ceiling. Holes in the ceiling, but that's beside the point.
Acceptable losses.
Like the Gears of War, what was it called? The big laser that they fired from the sky.
To the God Hammer?
Thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Giant freaking
Something
sky
like
laser.
Yeah.
Christmas nativity scene, that's quite cute as well. Sorry, you were saying there was a thing, a train. That was
I kind of want to see what sort of buildings and stuff they've done, because anytime you can get like medieval sort of era terrain, it's just so versatile. And I love seeing it. Chicken coop. Jerry, we were talking about chickens this week, but let's not talk about it on the show.
Yes, we were. If you can guess what we were talking about this week about chickens in the comments below, you're the prize winner. I will find you get it. I won't even pick a different one.
But yeah, perfect stuff for kind of adding character and life to a board.
I love incidental pieces like that.
Yeah.
I mean, love. Certainly in Barnes Border Reavers, Saga, often you need things like this for scenarios because it will be raids on villages and
steal the chickens because reasons.
Yeah, well, because it's livestock. Livestock costs money, therefore it's wealth.
Yes.
So take
and
that.
It tastes really good.
You get meat at the end of it. Yeah, it's a lot like human.
I've
heard. Never tried to check myself.
I'm also loving the fact that the fencing there is modular, so you could just do an absolute ton of it to actually break up your fields and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, nice little pile of treasure, the loot.
Or a couple of Norman vampires have been staked. And all that's left is their armor.
This is fair.
Except there's a lot of helmets in there.
Yeah, someone sold them a coffin but didn't give them dimensions.
That looks like off to the Holy Land for some
good times for all.
Plenary indulgences. It's just like a box full of hats.
Yeah. One of the things that's really nice about their general, I don't know if you actually you'll see it if you sort of scroll down through it later on and stuff like that. But there's a really nice selection of kind of, and we're seeing some of the pieces here actually that kind of demonstrate it. But they do lots of kind of these diorama vignette style pieces, which I think is really nice. And they're just very good for kind of, as you say, setting the scene.
Nice coursework on the tiles.
Yeah, but also you get some really good stuff there that would be good for sort of like vignettes and stuff like that.
So the vignettes, find them in this part or just in the regular?
Yeah, if you scroll down through the main selection, you'll start to see them. So they've done like some really nice kind of scenes where you see like individuals in the heat of battle and all that kind of thing. So if you're looking to do stuff to kind of use as display painting pieces and that kind of thing, they've done lots of nice pieces for that, which I think is really cool.
Nice.
There's even some kind of like semi-fantasy stuff in there, which I think is kind of cool, especially if you're looking at something like Saga, where they always have this on like semi-mythical edge to it. Because they've got like a Templar who's in the midst of doing like a turn and dead thing, which I think is really cool. So like maybe he's found some zombies.
Statue is a turn counter.
I mean, that's amazing.
That's a nice touch.
Yeah,
that's a really nice touch.
But it's a really fun range to dive into and have a look at because they've got, there you go. You've got some really awesome little bits and pieces that would be perfect for that kind of display stuff.
Especially good, not just display, but if you're playing big mass battle games where you have 4 to 6 men per stand, multiple stands in a unit. Then often you can throw some casualties in to break it up a bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know I've done a fair bit in my Kings of War Roman army, because it just takes the regimentation off it. Just seeing a few guys desperately fighting for their lives at the edge, or being walked over because they're dead. So, some people
there is one last section of this I would really like a look at if we can. Yeah, and there is a free section. So if you're wanting to actually give them a try before you buy,
mobile altar,
Death Vault.
It's the best way. Let people know what you're fighting for. So free.
Yeah, just
I think you get. I think you get a footman, and then you get a couple of additional bits and pieces. So yeah,
you two have the little baby jeebus.
Yeah. And then change it up.
Like anything like the nativity scenes on my Christmas cards, which are always an open-sided barn. Just saying. Somebody's incorrect here.
I always like the one with Baby Yoda in it.
Yes.
Baby Yoda and 2 Tyrannosaurus Rex fighting over a table saw.
Sacrilege, but true. The best kind of sacrilege. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a really nice one to actually test print as well, because you get something that's like incredibly detailed there with the chainmail work. So if you want to try and see how that's going to come out, I think that's a pretty decent one to look at, especially with the depth on the helmet and that kind of thing as well. So yeah,
a very good benchmark.
Yes, yeah.
Sweet to the beat. So Reconquer Designs. If you fancy doing a bit of the Reconquista,
yes,
with your 3D prints, you children. Shiny digital things, you.
Medieval's all the rage right now, guys.
Medieval is always the rage.
Jerry, just wait. You're going to get food 3D printers soon, and you're going to starve.
No, I won't. Haven't I already mentioned that people taste a lot like chicken? There's a whole estate around me. Some of them are bound to have beautiful marbling based on the size of their asses.
Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days.
Let's move on and have a look at a couple of Kickstarters then.
Oh, yeah. So leaving that interesting image behind, we're going to head to the skies of World War II and possibly beyond with a fun little air-based dogfighting game that piqued my interest. I think it was shared on Facebook by
Book of Faces
by JT. I think it was. Who was sort of showing this thing off because it was one of his buddies. But this is by Babek. I'm not going to say your surname because I will butcher it and that'll be terrible. But this is a new dogfighting war game set between the eras of 1936 and 1946, because it allows you to play out World War II across a variety of different theatres. So you can go into the Pacific, you can go to the Western Theatre, the Eastern Theatre, and everything else in between, including fighting over North Africa and the Mediterranean as well. But the extra little added bit to the end, that 1946, is because they kind of also thrown into the mix this idea of kind of like a what if. So it starts to look at some of the technology and some of the planes and things that were developed towards the tail end of the war, and sort of plays around with it
and stuff like that.
So as you're thinking about what might have happened if the war had continued a little bit further on into the sort of the tail end of the 40s and things like that, which I think is a really nice thing. They've approached this from the viewpoint of trying to make it a no mess, quick and easy, fun game for people to dive into that isn't going to be one of those things that people argue about all the time. So a lot of games like this, where everything has to be very precise in terms of movement and things, of planes and ships and that kind of stuff, it can be a little bit annoying if you're using tape measures and things like that, because people are like, oh, that was way out of my arc and all that kind of stuff. Well, they've tried to solve that by making everything work on hexes. Hexes are great for this. Yeah. I don't have to tell that to BattleTech fans, but hexes are great. So they've designed it so that it's quick and easy to dive into in that form. There's a couple of the combat breaks down very, very quickly and easily. There's a couple of different phases. There's an initiative phase where your Rothsteer goes first on a turn. There's movement phase and there's a combat phase. One of the nice things about that combat phase, where all the action is going to happen, is that if you're in the right position with two planes actually facing off against each other, they actually start to shoot each other at the same time. So you've got that really nice sort of like cat and mouse thing as you're chasing the planes around the tabletop and shooting them in the back and stuff like that, trying to get into the right positions. But if you are going to like a proper head-on thing, then it's kind of dealt with the idea that, the planes would definitely be shooting at each other and that kind of stuff.
Mutually assured destruction.
Mutually assured destruction, yeah. The other thing they've done, as you can see, and I can actually see it in that image there, which is really nice, is that they've tried to make it so that bookkeeping is at a minimum. And so everything is marked on your bases with those little tiny coloured markers. So that's kind of added into the mix there as well, which I think is really nice.
Better.
Yeah, you can see it a bit better. There you go.
I am wondering what the interaction with the Navy ship that's in there, the Japanese aircraft carrier. I would love to see a game like this where you can have both naval and air units at sea fighting each other.
Well, the naval ship they designed is at a slightly different scale to the airplanes, but there is ground attack elements to the scenarios in Air Raid. So the main premise of the core rulebook and the core set is the battle over Pearl Harbor. Yeah. So it's the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor and the US retaliation to that, and sort of focusing on the Pacific theater. And so there will be scenarios where you could use ships on the map and things that you'll be bombing and that kind of thing, which is really nice. But that's slightly abstracted most of the time in the game, but you could obviously just use the miniatures to mark that kind of thing if you really wanted to, which I think is really nice.
I do like the look of the 1/2400 scale ships, because it kind of makes it look as if you are up seeing them down below the aircraft. It kind of gives you that forced perspective, which is quite a nice touch.
That is very cool. That is really nice. Yeah. The other thing that they've done to try and make it easy to dive into is that the core mechanics are very simple, and they've made it so that there's no kind of like elevation and all that kind of thing. But you can tie in those advanced mechanics. So if you want to have planes that are higher than others and that kind of stuff, they've thrown those elements into the game so that if you want to take it to that next step, you can, and get a little bit more stuck into the detail and stuff. Talking of detail, the miniatures, they were tinkering around with the idea of resin for the planes, but they realized that they were a little bit more fragile. And because you're going to be using these for game pieces, they wanted to make them as solid as possible. So these are 1/200 metals, which is very nice.
I'm surprised they didn't look at Seocast.
Yeah, well, they didn't want bendy planes.
Fair.
As a few people have pointed out, you are going to have to paint some markings onto these things, but there's also loads of transfers out there if you want to throw transfers onto these kind of planes.
I know at least two companies that just specialize in airplane transfers.
Yeah.
That's all they do in every scale. Transfers are not difficult to get for these in the grand scheme of things.
So, you should be all right in that case. Yeah. And they're very well detailed as well. So, and because the metal holds that. So when it comes to doing all that fine detail work in the linings and stuff like that, you should be perfectly fine with a wash or something to get the pin washes.
I do like that the flight stands look hefty enough that they're not just going to be snapping on you the whole time.
Yeah, they've definitely made it as a gaming product rather than it just being one of this. Look at our pretty planes kind of thing. Which
it
I think
has
is really
been
nice
tested against ham fists.
Yes,
I know they said they're getting the metals are being done by Schilling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly certain we looked at.
I think we
as
did.
An indie.
Yeah.
Because they do a whole host of fantastic stuff as well as doing casting for other people. Yeah. So I'm really interested to see how this pans out.
Yeah, one of the other things that's really good about this, well, actually a couple of different things. There's loads of things that are really nice about this because it's the reason I put it in the show, because it looks amazing. But again, in that vein of trying to make things quick and easy to play, everything is on your fighter plane cards. So all of your stats are there. So there's very little having to reference different things. Everything that you need is just listed on there. So once you've got an idea of what all the stuff means, you can just dive in and have fun with it. And you've got like different details on either side of the card and things like that. The other thing that's good is that they're, as I said earlier, they're not just focusing on the Pacific. That's what they're doing at the moment because, it's a fun and interesting idea and, allows you to play around with that those cool Japanese fighters and the US ones. Yeah. But they, as you can see, they're doing planes for everything.
I was looking and going, why is the French here?
Yeah. There's French, Soviets, British, Americans, everything else in between. They're doing a nice thing with the expansion content that comes into the game as well, where they're throwing in lots of different scenarios. So if you buy in at that core pledge and then you get loads of the stuff from the stretch goals, that obviously is going to unlock you the ability to get planes and all that kind of stuff, but also scenarios to play alongside them. So you're not just going to get yourself a whole bunch of Spitfires or whatever and then not be able to play out the Battle of Britain, because they'll throw in stuff like that allows you to do that kind of thing, which I think is a really nice approach to stuff. The other thing that's really cool, and it's something that I know a few people will like, is that if they get a certain amount of backers or that want it, they're going to be doing a German language version of this as well, because the core rulebook will be in English throughout, but they're also going to throw some stuff in there for German language speakers. So if they want to play the game, then they're going to have components in order to do that as well, which I think is really nice. And obviously you can see the German British style combination of different things here anyway, from the Kickstarter page, which is really
I'm
nice.
almost shocked that it's not going to be in dual language from the start. Or at least just it's straight in German from the start. I suppose it's
and then the British will have to just deal with it.
That's what I would do.
Then I got the language, Balderdash.
Yeah.
But it does look fascinating. I like the fact that they've gone with metal figures, which probably has pushed the actually, as far as a core game goes, 66 quid for, is it 10 planes aside in the metal?
10 planes aside, then you get all the stretch goals and the access to the add-ons as well.
Hard work, paperwork.
I can live with that. Let's call it a $5. Yeah, it's
Negotiations.
Really nice looking. Range that they've got planned out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly they've done a lot of the heavy lifting up front.
Yes, yeah. It's clearly a labor of love, and it's clearly come from people who really like the idea of World War II and dogfighting and that kind of thing. So they've put the love and attention into it, which is always nice to see with the game.
Question: funded, yay or nine?
Yes,
it is funded. Yes.
Just into stretch goals now, so just need other people to hop on board.
Yeah,
cool.
And at the time of you seeing this, is going to be about 13 days left on it. If you want to get involved and have a look at it.
Plenty of time if you want to take to the skies. I'm wondering what they'll do if you've seen the Sturmvik's there. Obviously, there was a game many moons ago. You won't remember this, Shay, you young'un. There's a game called Sturmvik, which was aerial combat, but it included things like the late war / paper jet fighters. So
cool.
The uni-winged, it was the Gotha, and stuff like that. But you could also put them up against biplanes. The Gotha couldn't slow down. You'd have to take your run up from miles away and then fire in advance because you would just pass a biplane so quickly. And I just, that bit where they're going to 46, I have that in my mind. I just want to see them where you've got jets that are basically just blitzing across the board, then having to try desperately come around and actually draw a bead on somebody, because it was just so amusing to watch a little biplane on a bombing run. And the world's most technologically advanced jet fighter couldn't get near it because it was too slow. If you throttled back so much, your jet engines just went off and you crashed.
And then the guy in the biplane just throws a brick.
Yeah, pretty much. Just walk up there, just drop the bomb out the cockpit, and on you go. But it has great potential just for the standard World War II dogfighting anyway.
Yeah, it really does.
And then just with that little nudge, just a year further on, could be really fascinating to see exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Right, we have one more Kickstarter.
Yes.
We're all legendary.
We are. So Apex Legends, a lot of people will know this as the Battle Royale first-person shooter that is on consoles and PC. And in the growing trend of turning first-person shooters into board games. Did you know there's a Call of Duty board game coming? That's a topic for another day. But Apex Legends is being turned into a board game where you'll take on the role of the eponymous and iconic legends, as you can see there, and battle to see who comes out on top in those final moments of a battle royale where the kind of barriers are moving in, ready to kill you. As I say, going to be basically a replaying of the Apex Legends first-person shooter on the tabletop, with some very faithful mechanics in there. It'll kind of tie things into the video game for a lot of fans. It is a board game / card game, but it's also very much a miniatures game, as you can see, because it comes with lots of terrain and all sorts of miniatures and everything else. The idea is that it's kind of set around the kind of final moments of a game of Apex Legends, where, the last couple of heroes have managed to get into the center of the map while the walls are closing in, and they are diving into that last-ditch attempt to come out on top before everything goes to pot, and you obviously want to become the legend. You'll be running around the map as your individual and unique legends, looting crates and getting your hands on all sorts of weapons and accessories and grenades and everything else in between. And then it dives into a very quick and brutal kind of shootout between you and the other players. The kind of looting is done through like this random deck of cards, as you can see there. So you'll sort of flip that over and you'll determine what kind of loot you get. And it could be armor, it could be weapons, it could be things to sort of add on to your weapons and everything else in between. And then actual gameplay and the shooting bit is done based on your individual weapons and your own skill. And then you draw cards from a deck, and depending on like your range and stuff, you'll play the cards out into these different areas. And if you kind of get like under your, I think it's either under or over your ballistic skill, as it were, you'll then hit your opponent and do a certain amount of damage based on where you are and where you've hit them, and you can do like headshots and everything else in between. So there's some really nice mechanics put in there to kind of get across that really dynamic, brutal kind of get up close and personal first-person shooter vibe to the game, the video game, but on the tabletop, which I think is a really nice way of approaching it. And it's lots of really interesting and innovative mechanics in there that I've not really seen in other games before, which is good to see.
Because I know nothing about the computer game.
right, yeah.
Because ones and zeros. However, because whenever you're looking at it, you're going, well, it's kind of a board game miniature shoot 'em up. You're going, well, there are plenty of those about. But the portal movement, that's quite nice. But also the fact that the arena closes,
the encroachment.
It's a really nice.
So there's like a danger zone on the outside which closes in the battle royale mode. And in other modes as well, but that kind of focuses in on and makes sure that the action gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And that kind of teleportation thing is one of the characters. I think it's Wraith can do that, so they can vanish from one area through the portals to the other. But it also means that you can use that because it stays there on the map as kind of like a generated thing that you've created to kind of like get back at your opponents. Like I was watching some gameplay of this in action, and someone went round to go and loot something, but it's where Wraith had left one of her portals, and so they were behind a wall essentially, and they thought, well, I'm safe. But then the two characters on the other side just went through the portal and just shot this dude who was like busily trying to like loot.
Fair enough.
I
will say I am just happy that it's not Fortnite. Can you imagine the insanity of the free build mechanic being put into a board game? Nuts.
Basically, they give you a pack of Lego at the same time as the board game. That would be
no, thank you, but no.
But yeah, so obviously the Kickstarter takes things to the next level. So the kind of core game just has kind of like your cards out in front of you and all that kind of stuff. But as you can see with this one, they've put in like these really big like player dashboards that are kind of built around the different characters, so you can store all your cards. And you can show your conditions and all that kind of stuff as well. Because, Kickstarter goes to the next level, of course.
The one thing missing from this is a laser line.
Just so you can actually do like the laser pointer. That'd be cool.
You can laser point along the edge of the board to make sure you're in or out. Because running your eye across, that's fine. But being able just to go boop and line it up would be a really cool addition.
That would be cool. Actually.
Let's get one from Laser Fuchs.
Yeah. There's also a couple of different game modes. So there's the traditional Battle Royale one. But there's also a team deathmatch. And one of the other things that a lot of people have talked about with this is that, the lethality of Apex Legends is pretty high. So what happens, and you can do like respawning and all that kind of things as well if you really want to. They're also talking about putting in different modes of play beyond just those two. So you're going to have solo and cooperative stuff in there, which I think is quite nice. So you can go up against AI opponents if you want to, which I think is really cool. As if you were playing bots in the video game, I suppose. And of course, the sky is a wonderful, lovely blue in terms of where they could go in terms of adding characters and other legends and everything else into the mix at the same time. So,
have there been lots of these?
There's lots of legends. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, although I do have to wonder, at the start of the game, do I just toss my miniature up in the air where it lands on the board is where it lands on the map?
That would be cool if you just had to do a drop. But yeah, I suppose you could do that. That would be kind of fun.
Any of this.
Yeah.
But
what is this nonsense you're talking about?
from what I'm
In
looking
the
at
game,
then-
you parachute in, Jerry.
Sure. So it looks like everybody's going to be asymmetric then, because
Yep.
presumably there's all different styles.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this fella's
Yeah.
got little multiple ones, one the other one's had a
Holograms.
chicken, like they always do.
Yeah. So each of the characters has different abilities. So
yeah.
it's got that asymmetrical element to the game, which I think is really nice. Like as I said, Wraith's got the ability to go through the portals and stuff.
Holy
There's the guy who can
things,
create holograms of himself that will draw attention from him and that kind of thing as well. There's healers. There's one of the guys can call in like an artillery bombardment on the table. So he marks a spot on the table, and there on the table in terms of all the squares that you see on the
Yeah.
mat. And then 2 turns later,
It
huge
lands.
like mortar comes down and blows everything up and stuff.
This guy
So,
ruins your finances by getting you to invest in crypto.
yes.
Dogecoin.
Yeah, he keeps asking you about Bitcoin, yeah, and generating it. Yeah.
I'd say it sounds fascinating, even, from the point of view of somebody who knows nothing about the game. I
Yeah.
like the idea of not just a straight shoot 'em up
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to doing a sort of an adaptation like this, and having obviously asymmetric characters is a standard thing, but having the board change size over
Mhm.
time.
I also like
which is
the loot
interesting.
mechanic in there as well, because you
Yeah.
can't guarantee what weapons you're going to get. Because you could pick someone with your perfect favorite playstyle, you love using them, and when you open that loot crate, you get the crappiest little pistol.
Do you not
Yeah.
start with a gun or weapon?
I think you start with a basic fire, like a basic rifle,
Okay.
because obviously that would be a bit mean.
Yeah, yeah.
But you do have
Alright.
you just really like loot and pick up stuff. Like it's one of the guns called like a Bangalore or something like that, and it's like a
There's
shotgun
character called
pistol or something.
Bangalore.
There's a character called Bangalore. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I've played Apex Legends, mainly because I played it 3 times, got beaten by people who were obviously younger than me.
Hmm.
And I went-
10-year-olds
I
who
f-
spend
I
8
was-
hours a day like a job,
Yeah.
working, playing,
Uh,
perfecting the skills, perfecting the twitch
Yeah.
while high on caffeine.
I was like, my fingers don't work fast enough for this, and so I gave up. So yeah,
There's Core Pledge, which is 3 characters, but you get a freebie in there at the moment, he
Mm.
said.
and then
My
there's
question
also
was,
the expansion and stuff like that
Is
as
it
well.
EOT?
So.
That's
A 70 quid buy, and I'm okay with that.
yeah, it's not
Also,
terrible.
I mean, if you're a
If you need
wargamer,
everything.
that terrain is also
Yeah.
pretty damn nice. I gotta
Yeah,
say.
the thick cardstock with the foldable inserts, so you can sort of
Yeah,
flat
yeah,
pack it
yeah.
away is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
Very good
And
for
222 for the all-in.
Mhm.
a whole
That's
host of games.
respectable
Yeah.
for an all-in.
Be interesting to see who's doing this.
Glass
So-
Cannon Unplugged are behind
Right.
this one. So
Are we aware of their work?
I believe they've
I
done
am
stuff
not aware of their
before,
work.
but I can't remember what their last campaign was.
Are they funded?
They are indeed
Oops.
funded, and there
Not
are
real surprised.
20 days left on it at this point. So
I'm
at the
just
point you're
curious
watching
now. 2 created. What was your other one?
it was
Oh,
Frostpunk.
Frostpunk.
There you go. Yeah.
I have
Oh.
wanted that one for ages.
So there you go. They've got a bit of a pedigree in a previous licensed game as well, which is good.
Mm.
So
Interesting stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
So at least it's not somebody who's got the license and has never had the joy of manufacturing before, trying to put it all together, because pretty renders and fancy digital animations look great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
when
but
the,
hard physical product is what we're here for.
mm.
when the cleaver hits the bone.
I'll have
They will
to
be involved.
come back to you guys next week with the Call of Duty, so with some of the details on the Call of Duty board game, because that has some very interesting.
Oh,
Mechanics
so many
in it.
memories.
Yeah.
To start with reminiscing about how Battlefield 1942 was a better game.
No, it's me reminiscing about breaking the server in our local LAN center.
Oh,
Wow.
dear.
Wow.
Told you to be
Breaking
careful when you go
technology
to the bathroom.
all the time.
Right. There is 20 days left on Apex Legends.
Yes.
13 for Air Raid 3646. 56? Question mark.
3646, possibly.
If you want to get in either of those. And we are going to shoot the crow and head on. We'll be back on Sunday morning if you want to join us for our Cult of Games XLBS over on tabletop.com, where we have a little hobby wetter between ourselves and our cultists. Otherwise, we'll be back again next Friday. Jen is coming so quickly. Only, what, one more weekender before Christmas? Type of thing?
One more weekender,
before
yeah.
the Doom.
Yeah.
Shocking stuff. Right. So we'll see you then. Otherwise, have a great week of gaming. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.